Because you know what? A country is an inanimate object, and it's only a teeny tiny bunch of freaks that
Yeah.
want to start fights all around the place.
Yes.
And
Divide
that's
and
it.
rule, divide and
Yeah.
conquer, isn't it? They just want put them into this group and set them against this group, and they do it all the time. I mean, we've got it in this country, haven't we? Even within the country, it's set the vaxxed against the anti-vaxxed or the non-vaxxed, and set the COVID deniers against the rest of the
100%.
population. Yeah,
it's divide and rule.
It's been really strong in the last couple of years. It's been a bit shocking, really. I didn't realize we were so is the word uncivilized, undeveloped? I didn't realize we were that undeveloped as a civilization, that we couldn't cope with that we wouldn't see what was happening there.
But I think it's been around since the World War II, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Where there was that prisoner. He became a prisoner. He was a Christian in Nazi Germany, but he had wanted nothing to do with the Nazis, and he observed that process firsthand of mass formation. And he said that formerly good people that he would never have thought of doing atrocious things, all of a sudden happily scapegoated Jewish people and were willing to do the most awful things to them. And then going off of that work, he had Professor Matthias at Ghent University, and it's that's been really, really sobering to see that in action. And not only that, but the way that we've pivoted, like I said, over to Ukraine. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think you should never invade a country. And Putin is wrong in 1,000 different ways, and he's an evil person, I'm sure. But I know he is. But
he is a brilliant baddie. You sort of look at him and you see the James Bond baddie. But I mean, with Ukraine, it's really complex.
Exactly. And then also there's lots of people in Ukraine who, not everyone obviously, but there are many Ukrainians who feel very Russian at heart and have a great fondness for that connection. And also it's like this selective rage that we have that again links to the mass formation. Why is it that no one cares about the 81 people in Saudi Arabia that were beheaded, just like a week or so ago? No outrage there. No outrage for the Yemeni children blown smithereens. And except I could go on and on and on about all of these atrocities. And we're so upset about, rightfully so, that Russia invaded another country. And I believe in the non-aggression principle. I don't believe you should ever instigate violence against anyone. But why is it we stay, we get caught, the past when we invaded Iraq and obliterated Libya, and we did, we even destroyed all of the infrastructure in those countries to a great extent. What makes that right?
Oh, I know. It's very all this virtue signaling with Ukraine, isn't it? In that, there's two sides, and it's not really any of our business, to be honest, and it's not nearly as clear cut as people are making out. I sort of think of it a bit like the Northern Ireland issue a bit. There are people who want to separate and there are people who want to stay, and it's got a history going back so far. We can't unravel it.
Exactly.
But what I think we can say quite readily is I don't know about Putin. I know he's been involved with the WEF in the past, but whether he's now sort of trying to ditch them, I don't know.
But they booted him off the site, didn't they? They booted him off the site.
Did they?
So he had a profile there, and it was a sophisticated profile, because on one of the browsers it actually had his whole CV. Because you notice the former darlings of the World Economic Forum, like for instance, funnily enough, the two front runners in the French election, they all both have profiles on the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, well, Macron is his young leader, isn't he? Yeah, Macron's the young leader. Zelensky's clearly a WEF puppets, and he's been funded by NATO. The separatists have been funded by NATO for a long time, which is
like
WEF organization now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like Gerald Celente said, when all else fails, they take you to war. They won't, like I said, they won't mention people like Stalin and their atrocities, and Lenin and Mao and all of these horrible people. They won't talk about that. They'll tell you how bad Hitler is, which I completely agree with. Hitler was a disgusting human being. I don't think anyone I know that would ever, and I don't know, appalling person.
The agenda of look at the WF. They probably worship him.
They probably do. I mean,
it's very amateurish.
It's the Fourth Reich, don't you? Yeah, you think whether it's one of the Fourth Reich, because they learned a lot from that because
They
they
learned a
understood
lot
that
about the mass psychosis, didn't they? A lot
mass
about.
psychosis. They also learned that you can't be the evil demagogue with a pitchfork.
Mm.
Instead of being someone as obviously evil as Hitler was, a disgusting human being, you have to almost use left cover and, that veneer of, like I said, word salads to cover up what your true intentions. Like I said, global warming. They've managed to turn a very anti-human, psychopathic hatred of humanity into a virtue by making by bringing out this kind of ludicrous idea, which is demonstrably loony. I mean, my chemistry teacher back in the 90s said the very reason that he didn't believe in anthropogenic climate change was the fact that if you look at to simplify everything, if you look at the global temperatures versus CO2, it's very clear that the global temperatures rise and then the CO2 rises. Now, if CO2 was was a causal reason for temperature rise globally, CO2 would rise, then temperature would rise. But it doesn't happen that way. It's the other way around, clearly. So even on that very simple foundation, you understand that it's a castle built on sand. The whole thing is insane because the oceans are massive battery stores,
Oh, it's
essentially, of
brilliant.
CO2.
Such a buffer
Yeah.
for carbon dioxide. It'll release it when the levels are low, and it will take it in when the levels are high. It's absolutely
Indeed.
marvelous. And
Yeah.
so I think this whole thing about, like you say, they've sort of turned it into a virtue, but it's completely wrong. They're talking about how there's going to be all this starvation if the world heats up. There won't. The crops will grow better, especially if there's more CO2 as well. At times when there's been high temperatures and high CO2, the plant and animal life on this earth has absolutely flourished. It's been huge. You only have to look at the dinosaurs, don't you? The absolutely monstrous life on Earth. Plus, you open up all the things like the Russian steppes, which are all the tundra, which is currently pretty unfarmable. You can't grow much on it. It's
all of the Arctic
becomes feasible because you've got the land there. Now, I'm not personally into polluting the world. I don't want to see
exactly
polluting the world. But to go down the carbon dioxide route is just a sort of massive red herring when you see
it's a massive red herring. And also the
problem being plastics, which is genuinely
exactly. But there's another thing. I was looking and understanding chemistry that there's many high density plastics and tires even they can actually via an economically viable way be reconverted back into crude. And we could do it in a way that it fractionally distills whilst we do it. So we could actually get the distillates of jet fuel, petrol, diesel, and all of that. But the very reason that we can't do it and we won't do it is because of the global warming anthropogenic crowd, because they'll say, oh, you're increasing your carbon footprint. So because of that, all of these horrible
they
plastics,
own the patent for it, and we can't access the technology.
They can't recycle these things. They can't recycle them. They're not good at recycling any of this. The tires, the high density plastics, they're not very good at it.
No.
They just want to pour them into the ocean. And the only thing that matters is anthropogenic climate change. When we could actually reverse that, we could have a good fuel stock. I mean, imagine you could scoop up lots of this plastic. We could have an active recycling thing, and we could actually, I'm not saying we could totally replace it, but we could definitely alleviate the fuel situation we have at the moment, bringing the price per litre down.
So what about the water car? I mean, where's that gone? There's
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it totally should work. There's I'm assuming it's some sort of electrolysis. I don't know.
Electrolysis of in a fuel cell in a very efficient way. But I don't know.
Given the science that we have, that we can actually split atoms and things, we could surely do that. But it seems like it's one of these things, these patents that's disappeared. That's these technologies that's become buried. Probably by the bloody Rockefeller Foundation.
Or the Saudis, who knows? Anyone who's got a massive amount to lose.
Any good science that actually benefits humanity seems to be buried by the patents bought, the hidden,
and
the
don't forget that many of the
People who
banks,
invent them go mad somehow.
yeah, and
Or
many
they
of the
die
world's
like
banks were
Tesla.
heavily underwater with the
Mm.
fuel price being low, because they were underwater because of a lot of contracts they had, like futures contracts and everything else. So it's a great way to deleverage. And
Oh, right, yeah.
also, with this Ukraine war, with their pet, like you said, their World Economic Forum pet stirring, and because obviously Russia's the #2 oil producer in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and gas and everything else. So and it kind of feeds into the Build Back Better. So it's a kind of a win-win for them, because
Oh,
they
completely.
obviously
You've
have
got it
to
also
destroy
now.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to destroy us and bring us to our knees economically, and by health and mental health and everything else. That when you do that, then you offer the solution, because it's the problem reaction solution. It goes all the way to sales. I mean, it's very basic, but it's very, very
The
effective.
nerve of it for the,
I know.
the
But
people
these
who
are
are
psychopaths
actually
you're dealing
causing
with,
the
yeah.
bloody problem, saying they're going to give us the solutions.
I know.
No,
It's
go away.
insane. We know that. And hopefully the people, watching, and people who are intelligent enough to vote for us, which hopefully there's a good number of them, understand that. But there is a good segment of people that will never ever get it. And you can tell them that the sky's green and the grass is blue, and they'll believe it till the cows come home, which is unfortunate. But we need to get involved.